going to tell you about my conversation with this particular operator. I'd met him in a social context a couple of times in a group, purposefully introduced to him as somebody who was going to be a valuable source to me as I went down this rabbit hole. And after meeting him twice, he became comfortable enough with me and trustful enough with me that I would only reveal what I'm allowed to reveal. And he agreed to a private meeting. I showed up at the meeting with him, and this is an undisclosed location in Northern Virginia. The first thing he did is he handed me a Faraday bag for my cell phone, but I already had one, and he was very impressed with that I already had my own. And so we began our meeting. And here's what the first thing that this particular special operator said to me. He told me that he is in fact one of the smallest of handful of experts on this particular agitation weapon, this backpack size energy weapon. And he said, the only reason that I agreed to talk to you, and this is an exact quote, is because you already know too fucking much. And he said, but you have no fucking idea what it is actually capable of. And that was his intro to me in this particular meeting. During this meeting, Matt, he then said to me, he said, I am going to appeal to you and to your patriotism to not release all of the capabilities of this particular weapon. He said, the reason why I'm asking you not to go public with this is because there still are actual valuable interests. There are national security interests and actual operational good of this particular type of weapon that we have on the battlefield. And from that conversation, Matt, and this is where it changed significantly, we began to discuss the actual group that he worked with. And I have long insinuated their existence, but there's enough public information now, again, Googleable, that I don't have any problems naming the organization that he and this other small handful of special operators work for. There was a book written 2016 called The Killer Elite, which talked about this particular group. Some of them called them, in this book, they referred to them as the activity. Sometimes they just refer to them as the unit. There was an actual book came out last year about this group called the unit. And it's only right at about 100 of our most elite operators. These guys are not recruited for their brawn. They don't look like SEALs. You know, they don't look like frogmen. You can recognize a SEAL in a room pretty quickly. You won't recognize one of these guys. They're recruited for their brains. They're almost all polyglots. In other words, they speak multiple languages. This particular individual that I was talking to right here spoke 5 languages. The member of that same group that introduced me to him, he spoke 8 languages, 5 of them fluent or native, as they say. And they are expert in multiple disciplines. And this group operates out of 2 bases just out either side of north and south of DC, one at Fort Meade in Maryland, the other at Fort Belvoir in Virginia. And if the numbers that I'm given are correct, there's only at any one time 102 operatives in this elite group. And so they're generally referred to, and any special operator that's listening to this broadcast right here, whether they're Green Beret, Navy SEAL, Delta Force, or some other group, will certainly recognize when I say the phrase Task Force Orange. And that's what this group is typically referred to. And so these operators that I'm referring to who have not only used these battlefield versions of backpack directed energy weapons, or agitation weapons, as they like to call them, also were essential in the development of these. weapons as well, actual consulting engineers themselves in the development and the actual application in the battlefield of these weapons. So this is where this particular conversation turned. Acknowledging that he was a member of Task Force Orange, or TFO, I asked him a couple of questions. I said, humor me for a moment. Let me give you a set of numbers here and see if you agree with this set of numbers or this analysis. If I'm talking about Navy SEALs operators, or if I'm talking about Delta Force, I said, we're probably looking about 85 to 90%, maybe even higher, of those individual groups are conservative, right-leaning politically, Trump supporters, MAGA. I said, is that a fair characterization? He said, yeah, that's probably about right, 85 to 90%. I said, but if we're talking about Task Force Orange, it's only about 60%. Isn't that correct? And he kind of looked up and he went, 55 tops. So what he was saying is that the most elite group in our entire United States military special operations Task Force Orange are somewhere on the order of 40 to 45% liberal, which is starkly different from the other special forces groups. So I asked him then, I said, well, isn't it because of the nature of TFO and that so much of what you guys do are psychological operations, signal intelligence, human intelligence, things of that nature? Isn't it fairly certain that your commanders know the politics of every individual member of the group? And he said, yeah, that's probably fair. And I said, wouldn't it therefore be possible to take a guy who is left leaning, maybe, I don't know to what degree of left of center he might be, but wouldn't it be possible to convince somebody on the left side of the ledger with this particular skill set that literal Hitler is running for president, and that you would be doing the work of God and country to either take him out or take his people out or take out his key supporters? In this particular TFO operator, he went silent on me for a moment and he goes, fuck. He had never been willing to go there because these guys were absolutely adamant. And I've met 8 of them now. I've met and interacted with 8 different retired members of TFO. And none of them are willing to allow that their brothers or sisters from that elite unit would be involved in these types of domestic operations at all. But I happen to know that they were there that day on January 6th. And then Newsweek, 1 year later, first week of January 2022, ran a story. And the headline to that story, Matt, it was very sensational. It was definitely very clickbaity, but it said that special commandos, or secret commandos rather, with shoot to kill orders at January 6th. That was written by what you and I would refer to as a Mockingbird Media member, William Arkin, a consistent and valued source of our intelligence community and Department of Defense for many years, and leaking information and controlling narrative in the manner that they want it controlled, put this out there because I had 10 and a half months earlier put it out in my little bitty blog, but it was starting to get headwind. and, through the various interviews that I had done and podcasts that I'd been on, things of that nature, long before I was with the Blaze. So it was something that they needed to head off its pass. And in that particular article, it did say that while this particular elite unit was, it was unnamed, was there, we do not know what their operational stance was. The military has not released that to us. So 10 and a half months after I put that out there, Newsweek came forward with it with the same exact information.
Thank you for watching Kibbe on Liberty. You can watch new episodes every Wednesday anywhere that you consume podcasts, on YouTube, on Apple, on Spotify, whatever. Watch, click, like, check it out.